Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting for a few more of our steering committee members to log in. Thank you, Shelby, Dax, Danny, and Greg. I've got you all right here. I know that Lida will be along shortly. She has another engagement that's going to keep her, but she will be here eventually. And thanks to our guests. Let's see, we've got Tyler, Ben, and Kai. Welcome. And we'll get started in a few.
Hello, everyone.
Hey Matt, how are you? I was just telling the team, we'll get started here in a few, still waiting for a few more members to check in. Thanks. All right. Well, we now have a quorum, which is great. So we can get things started and we'll see if some of our other members join us. But we have a variety of additional participants as well. I'll do a quick roll call. Greg Walsh. Gotcha. Danny Steyer.
Yep.
Dax Albrecht.
Here.
Thank you. Shelby Long.
Here.
Thank you, Shelby. Matt Fogarty.
Here.
Great. And Marcia Roby.
Here.
Great. Thank you. And with that, may I have an approval of, or a motion for an approval of today's agenda?
I so move, Marcia.
Thank you, Marcia. And a second.
I'll second, Danny.
Thank you, Danny. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any, oh, great.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? None? Okay. And then with that, may I have a motion to approve the August 21st, 2024 meeting minutes?
Pretty different. Well, I move to approve.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. May I have a
Shelby
second?
seconds.
Thank you, Shelby. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, great. So first agenda item today, any public input? I know we've got some additional folks on today that are going to be continuing on the conversation from the Plymouth County Housing Council. But Kess Porter was on. I think you may have fallen off.
I saw him here too.
Okay, well, that's all right. We'll swing it back around if Kest has anything that he'd like to offer. But with that, we'll continue on with today's agenda. And so once again, this is, I think, the third installment of a various amount of topics brought to us from, to some degree, the Almanor Foundation, but more specifically, the Plymouth County Housing Council. And today we've got kind of an overview of yet another sort of component of this overall plan. And I wanted to turn things over to Tyler. Tyler, did you want to do introductions here with anybody new that's joining us?
Yeah, so yeah, hi everyone, steering committee. It's great to see you again. Thanks for letting me take up the agendas and your first the last couple weeks, so to speak. Again, I want to reiterate that the Almanor Foundation, through the Almanor Foundation Housing Committee, has initiated multiple efforts towards moving and gathering us workforce attainable housing, meaning 80 to 120% upwards of 160% area median income, AMI, that really falls outside of the traditional federal and state subsidy models. Those are tax-based models. And so for the last 2 years, the Almanor Foundation has contracted Elemental P to work towards creating a solution that in so many ways is incredibly complex, incredibly challenging, not only with the aftermath of the Dixie wildfire, but even before then, including construction costs, labor shortages, transportation cost, housing of cost of housing across the state as a whole. So an incredibly hard, incredibly complex and often referred to as a polycrisis. So many different crises happening at the same time. Within that, we've identified, number one, we need to build homes. We don't have the housing stock necessary to house those that are in our workforce that are keeping the economic engine running. We also need to support our renters, and we also need to support those getting into first-time buyers programs. That's what initiated our research and then ultimately resulted in a memo that was sent to all of the Dixie Fire Collaborative Steering Committee members. In that memo, it identifies 3 critical targeted areas of funding, including a development model, which you have talked to Kelly before about with RRA, Recovery and Reconstruction Advisors, and their development model. He's on the call today, and we could carve out a little bit of time for questions. We're looking at gathering all of the questions that have been submitted, as well as any additional questions that would like to be submitted, and doing a video recording addressing those questions so that we can address it with other people. With that, some great wins have been in process, not just in the conversations that we're having with the Dixie Fire Collaborative, but including local businesses. So Sierra Pacific Industries, within a week period of time, we got up to the executive level and have a meeting scheduled with them on Monday the 11th, so next Monday, to present this kind of funding strategy, investment opportunity that would build us workforce attainable housing. So we'll carve out a little bit of time and space for questions, maybe at the end after placement presentation. So that gets me to the next challenge opportunity, is really around how do we support our existing renters, our workforce that are renters when they've either been priced out of the homes or it's gotten too expensive. And then how do we ultimately encourage maybe what I would call is underutilized housing stock. So meaning housing stock that is not being rented out or that is sitting there vacant. How can we actually support that getting into the market? So we looked all over the place for models, and that's where we came across Placemate, which interesting enough was developed in our backyard in Tahoe, Truckee. Kai, one of the co-founders, is on the call, and we'll do an introduction here in a second and kind of run through the program and address your question. Has done a video recording and was, I believe, sent out to you all ahead of time to give you an introduction to the program. So our goal is to move quickly past the initial introductions and start to get into the program itself and what we're hoping to achieve with the potential funding. What I'd like to also say is we're also designing the programs as we move forward. What I mean by that is there's goals, and the goal is fundamentally to support our renters, to develop some new owners, and to build housing stock that is not just a one house and done kind of thing, but is scalable and applicable to the county as a whole. So when we do that, we need to realize that we're also designing programs that we're using the best case, but we're also designing and customizing for our specific region. And so within that, if there's core areas of concern, which I've heard before in different organizations, then we'd like to figure out ways of addressing those as we move forward. So with that, I'd love Kai to do an introduction, and if possible, we try to go for about 20 minutes and then leave some time for Kelly questions of the RRA model, if you don't mind, Kai. Oh, it looks like you're on mute. There we go.
Yes, I am. Sorry. Yeah, that's no problem. So do you want to do 20 minutes? Sorry. So do you want me to do just an overview of what I work on and then open it up for Q&A since they've already seen the ahead of time? Okay.
Yeah, I think the majority of the time questions and answers and kind of address concerns that the Dixie Fire Collaborative Steering Committee has. And yeah, so if you can do a quick introduction, maybe 5 minutes, and a little bit about the program, and then we'll dive into Q&A.
Perfect. Yes. Hi, my name is Kai Froelich, and I am the co-founder and chief impact officer of Placemate. We're a company that's based out of Truckee, California. My husband, who is my co-founder, Colin, and I, we started this business 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. In Truckee, when we moved to the area and realized that there were a lot of empty, vacant homes and lots of renters who needed a place to live, and lots of businesses that were suffering because of that and because of this exodus of a lot of the workers down to places like Reno and much further. And so we put together a platform that connected homeowners and tenants who were all locally employed, homeowners who had either empty second homes or short-term rentals, who were tired of doing the short-term renting. And then during COVID, we started to partner with the town of Truckee, and they gave money to the homeowners to kind of sweeten the deal around the efforts that we were already making. And that turned into an incentive program that incentivized homeowners to rent out to local employees, or as we said, qualified tenants. And we determined in the program what that qualification would be. And that program started in September 2020, so 4 years ago. And we have replicated that across the country, everywhere from Truckee, California, down to Mammoth and Eastern Placer County, all the way across the country to towns in Vermont and in Massachusetts on Cape Cod and beyond. So what we really like about this program is that it's replicable and also customizable. So really, it's a blueprint for a program to help open up existing inventory. It's not about building, it's about figuring out how to get people into housing much sooner than waiting for development. While development is obviously very needed in many communities around the country, Plumas County, definitely. And but it also helps people get into housing much sooner, especially because there is this bleed of local workforce in a lot of these communities. And I understand that Plumas County is no different in that. But so it is replicable. However, it's definitely not a big tech company. We're a company of 7 people. My husband and I have since moved to the East Coast. I'm from Portland, Maine, so I'm on the East Coast, but the rest of our team is still in Truckee and around Lake Tahoe. We go out there several times a year, and everybody else is still very much of that community. We were living in Truckee when the Dixie Fire happened, and we remember it very well. And so this is a small team, and we work with small communities, and we really understand firsthand how this needs to work. There are a lot of communities where the problem is the same, but there are a lot of nuances, and the people who live there really know the housing landscape much better than we do. So this isn't just like a plug and play model. We don't like toggle something onto the website and say like, now we're live in Plumas County. We're not like some big tech behemoth. This is an Airbnb. And so we really like to partner with a community organization or a jurisdiction. And I think that in this case, it would be partnering with Plumas Rural Services to figure out how this program that we call the Lease to Locals program, that's what this incentive program is called, how this could work really well in unlocking inventory in Plumas County for local workforce, for fire survivors first and foremost, to really get people into housing sooner than it can be built. So I would love to go from there with Q&A.
Thanks, Kai. Leaving that up, if you want to raise your hand and then we can call on you, or if you want to put any questions you have in the chat box, that would be great. I think the first thing that I might talk about while people are thinking about questions is originally we had looked at your other program called Rooted Renters, and we landed on Lease to Locals. So many people on the call may have heard me say, and in the memo it notes the difference, or that we called out Rooted Renters. Can you talk a little bit about why we chose Lease to Locals versus why that might be a better fit for us than the Rooted Renters, or how we might phase from one program to the next?
Yeah, great question. So Rooted Renters is a much newer program. We rolled it out for the first time this past July in Truckee. It's kind of a stepping stone past the Lease to Locals program. Lease to Locals is very much a conversion program, whereas Rooted Renters is a bit more of a preservation program. So the way that that works is that like Lease to Locals converts from empty second homes and short-term rentals into long-term rentals. Rooted Renters takes homeowners who have either participated in Lease to Locals already or who has just had a local tenant in their place at some point in the last 5 years, or 12 months to 5 years, and says, I've been doing the right thing. I've been renting to a local and they also can now get incentivized. But in order for them to do that, they have to sign a contract for 3 years. So it's not just a 1-year program like the Lease to Locals conversion program is. It's a bit more, it's just like another rung on the housing ladder. So it goes from like a 1-year Lease to Locals program to a 3-year Rooted Renters program. Maybe eventually people move into a deed restriction. That's kind of our hope. But yeah, we decided, well, we had talked about, Tyler and Ben and I had talked about how maybe the Lease to Locals program would serve the area better, and not do a Rooted Renters program right off the bat. Those are
Yeah, kind of.
So for unless there's more on that, Kai, we have a few questions and we'll go in order from we'll go Danny, Matt, and then Greg.
Yeah, so my question is so how is this supposed to play with the development model? I thought that it's independent of the development model, or because I thought in the development model you had somebody else to manage the resources.
Yeah, so Danny, I can take that question, because the way we're looking at this is initially we looked at the placemate program as a way of getting in diversified incomes into the housing stock that we developed, so that Kelly developed. That was the initial focus. But what we've found is the demand for that housing stock is so high already that if we can actually get underutilized housing stock in the market as well, that's what we need. What I mean by that is Seneca Healthcare District and Plumas District Hospital could develop kind of our initial capacity of could house their staff members in the first initial developments that were developed. And so we need additional housing. So if for instance, that the lease to local program does not activate any underutilized housing stock, then they would go into the developed housing stock that RRA developed. So it's looking at it as a phased tier plan to try to get as much housing stock activated as possible.
Yeah, I like to say I really like this plan because it's a carrot plan as opposed to a stick plan that is running around the Tahoe area and such where they're penalizing homeowners.
Yeah, that's a great point. We definitely do bill ourselves as the carrot instead of the stick approach. That's definitely why governments will contract with us and bring us on. And oftentimes we've seen in places that have such an incredible amount of short-term renting that they often will have to have both. But it's really nice to have an alternative to a lot of the homeowners who are finding that there are more and more restrictions and regulations on their property.
Yeah, I don't know that we have the unused resources around the valley in a sense. So we need resources too. But anyway, so that's just my pitch, and then I'll yield to somebody else. Matt's up next.
Yeah, Matt and then Greg. Thanks.
So in this model, who does the property management? Like who collects the rent and fixes the leaking, whatever, like maintains the property? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in most of the properties that we've worked with over the last 5 years, most of them will be homeowners that will do this themselves. They won't have a property manager. They definitely could have a property manager. But because it's long-term renting, we've actually found that a lot of people who have gone from short-term to long-term renting have actually just like kind of not fired, but let go of property management because they realized that it was so much less work to do long-term or seasonal renting. But that being said, they definitely can have a property management manager as like a liaison in the program, and that's totally fine.
Oh, Matt, you're still muted, bud.
That's fine. You can take Greg's question.
Okay, next question, Greg.
So you said like, in terms of the carrot and being the carrot, these are, are they incentives in terms of tax breaks, or are these like taxpayer subsidies? I mean, is this subsidized housing that we're creating?
So it definitely depends on, so as I said, this is customizable for each area. And so I think that in this case, it would be philanthropic, or it would come from like one of several funds that's helping to finance these programs. In most of the markets that we work in right now, they are tax funded. They're publicly funded by the jurisdiction.
Okay.
But it can be done differently. When we first created the program, it was created as a one-time incentive, and we found that up to 80%, and this is still true, that up to 80% of homeowners who go through this program for 1 year will continue renting even without an incentive. So they won't necessarily go back to short-term renting or leaving their property empty. They'll continue renting long-term to local employees.
What kind of incentive is it? Like how much or what percentage of the rent are we talking about of the market rate?
So it really depends on the market. In South Lake Tahoe, I think that's our lowest incentives, and that's $2,000 per person. When we launched in Summit County, Colorado in 2021, which is like the height of the short-term rental gold rush, the incentives were up to $22,000 for 1 year.
$22,000 incentive for 1 year.
And that's on top of the monthly rent.
$22,000. And this is for a 3-year program? Or was that a 1-year incentive? Is that a 3-year incentive?
That was for a 1 year incentive.
$23,000
So
for.
Greg,
Oh, okay.
too, for qualifications, what we're talking about is much less than that. We're talking about like,
That's the highest out of 12 markets that we've done.
Mhm.
That was for the first year that they did it. It went down from that. The lowest that we've done has been $2,000 per person. And that's what we've done down in South Lake, and that's $2,000 for a year. So it can, just that, all that is to say is that that's a huge range, and it can definitely be tailored to the specific community and to what those needs are. And basically what we're looking for is the delta between what a tenant who is up to 120% AMI or maybe up to 160% AMI can afford, and what the homeowner thinks that they can make with their property. Or, you know, it's figuring out like what is going to spark that behavior change.
I'd like to see the behavior change in terms of the employers giving living wages, personally.
I would too.
You know what I mean? In all honesty, instead of having taxpayers come in and pay for it, I'd rather see the employers pay for it.
Well,
So is that the target, Airbnb short-term rentals? Going those ways? Is that the main thing?
So that is part of it. That's definitely been part of it for a lot of the markets that we have worked in so far. Plumas County is definitely a different type of market. And so I think that that goes back to what Tyler was saying at the beginning of when he was speaking, which is to say that we're kind of strategizing and creating this program as we go. And I think that that's a big question, is how do we tailor this specifically for a place that does not have the density of short-term rentals. But the beginning of our company came from not short-term rentals, but from seeing a lot of houses sitting empty when there were a lot of workforce in need. And so I think that there's definitely a huge opportunity even in just looking at the empty second homes or empty properties.
We've got a question from Marcia and then from Dax.
Hi, how do you go about finding your housing stock? Do you put things in the paper? Do you put posters up?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So we have done a variety of things. I mean, we've done everything from a billboard. We did that once. It was not a good use of our money. All the way up to what we normally do in a lot of our markets is that we will put ads in local publications where people are going to see it and word of mouth is going to spread. But the best thing that we do to market our program is to send postcards to tax-paying addresses of property owners. And so a lot of people will say, oh, well, you're sending postcards, but people aren't living at those properties. That's the whole point, is that they're empty. But you can very easily now, with data that we can collect, is match up homes to where those homeowners actually live and get their mail. And so we'll send those postcards out to them, and that will really get into the right hands.
Dax, you have a question.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Marcia's, but I was just wondering if anybody has a good idea of how much underutilized housing actually exists in the county, if anybody has tried to quantify that at this point.
Tyler, do you want to?
no, we haven't
I mean, there's-
qualified under, oh, go ahead, Patrick.
Well, I was going to say that like there
Oh.
is a published like occupancy rate that the county puts out, and I mean, so it's kind of funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's to look at those numbers, and you'll find because it's broken down by not just large community, i.e. Portola, Quincy, Greenville, Chester, et cetera. It's broken down by sort of hamlet or neighborhood. So there's at least 50 different locations on there to include things that go out as far as Meadow Valley, as far south, right up to the Sierra Valley border, and all around. And it has occupancy rates. And so you'll see this disparity in places like Gray Eagle or Hamilton Branch or Lake Almanor that tend to have more second homes. And you'll see occupancy rates that are very low because of the seasonal dwelling that occurs there. And then you'll see large percentages in other parts where there's very limited occupancy. And I think the county does that annually. Tyler, do you have any more on that? I know that I came across it just by going down the sort of the Google rabbit hole on the county's website. I'm sure I could find it again.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers off the top. I know county had done it. We didn't do it in our housing assessment. We did look at Airbnb rates and whether that was a significant portion of the housing stock that was workforce attainable. Overall, we said not really, but what we're looking at is, somebody has a in-law unit on their property that they haven't rented or done anything with. They have a second home that they're interested in, or they're an Airbnb. Like those are the initial market or initial goal of getting those into the housing market specifically for workforce attainable. What Kai and I've also talked about is like the hope is that this program will be successful, that we will find a market of homes that are underutilized by our community members wanting to put them back in, and that we identify those in highest need for the renters that we can keep local. Another potential opportunity, this has been discussed a lot, but there hasn't been the carrot out there quite yet around additional ADU development. And so on people's single family home residence, and talk to multiple members of the community that were interested in that. So this might be a way of getting into supporting that market or that potential like development plan going forward in the future. Again, this is highly targeted at how can we get underutilized housing stock to the market, and we're talking about maybe 10 to 15 units a year kind of rate. We're not talking hundreds of thousands or even thousands. We're just trying to move the ball forward is really what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just poking around to see. I'll find it. Those occupancy rates. And worst comes worst, maybe I'll hit up Tracy Ferguson again. I know that I had it at one point. It's interesting just to kind of do some data analysis on where the occupancy happens to be low, and it matches anecdotally with where you might think it would be.
And I also wonder
yeah.
if those occupancy rates include the short-term rentals or exclude them. I
think
assume they exclude them, but
yeah, I think it includes it. I think it includes it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
The other factor to look into that is there's a lot of non-conforming or deteriorated housing stock that goes into the 0 to non, like that are non-occupied, that fall into like basically they're not habitable units. And the county has a lot of that. Is basically non-habitable units.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering, like, how is there actually that much underutilized stock? Because we don't have, a real significant short-term housing component here. And I feel that probably a lot of the other properties that are underutilized are probably underutilized for a reason, i.e. they're decrepit and falling apart. So I just, that's just something I'm kind of thinking about.
Yeah.
Looking at this.
Yeah, I think like what we found was Greenville actually held a lot of the underutilized that would be a good fit housing stock that obviously was destroyed in the fire. So that was one thing that was kind of like, again, a double whammy with Greenville. The other kind of component that goes into this around underutilized housing stock is there is enough of the units out there that are available. There's a belief in who the renter is, which is another kind of challenge that we have in marketing and messaging this program. Is the belief is they're low income renters that aren't going to take care of the space, and it's not worth the homeowner's time or energy to put that unit into the market. And so I talked to a lot of community members that were just unwilling to kind of rent because of the belief systems around who the renter is. With the program, part of the program is also around telling the story of who the renters are, which are, you know, a millwright at the mill that makes a good salary and has a, you know, knowledge needs the knowledge to be able to do their work. Different carpenters and different trades and expertise. Like we
Healthcare.
don't have the housing stock necessary for them, and that's what we're kind of telling the story of. Sorry, Kai.
Mhm.
All right.
I was saying healthcare as well, but yeah, we hear this a lot in all of the markets that we work in, where at the beginning people say, well, who's going to want to do this program? Like, I don't want to have, you know, 6 people growing pot in my garage and all of their dogs. And that's really not who the tenants are. And so I think that we have a good, you know, across 12 markets, we could share data on, you know, who are these tenants, who are the profiles of these people. And I think that it would be very similar to Greenville and the need around attainable housing, which is, again, not like capital A affordable. It's 80% AMI and above.
Do you guys do the screening of tenants or the matchmaking? Or
Yeah, so that's a good question. We don't technically do the screening. That's up to the homeowner to decide if they want to rent to those tenants. We do, however, do the application collection for the program. So if a homeowner says, oh, my neighbor told me about somebody at the hospital who's looking for a house, I'm going to meet, they're going to come here and see the property and decide if they want to rent it, or like, I'm just going to meet with them. And then that person comes, they say, okay, great, this could be a great fit. Let's see if you're eligible for the lease to locals program. I then will set, the homeowner will contact me, and I will then send the tenants or the potential tenants an application to fill out. And then I will qualify them for the program to make sure that they don't make too much money for the program, if there's an income cap, that they work enough hours locally, if that's one of the requirements of the program, that at least, you know, as again, it's customizable. So the program guidelines change from area to area, but you know, if 50% or more of the tenants in the household are working locally, so it's not just one person and then 2 other people who, you know, work high paying tech jobs who want to just be living in Plumas County. All of those things, we make sure that tenant group would be eligible for the program. And then we tell the homeowner, great, these people are good to go. You can rent to them for the lease to locals program. Send us the lease once it's signed, or send us the draft lease. And we'll make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed to make sure that the lease is also compliant with the program.
and how do you guys get compensated?
So we're paid a monthly fee from the, in most cases, jurisdiction. In this case, I guess it would be from the pool. Yeah, we're paid on a monthly basis and on an annual contract.
Yeah, the way we imagine this is that basically a local champion, which would be Plymouth Rural Services, would be the client. Basically, at the end of the day, that would pay Placemate to run the program and be a part. And then our hope is that Plymouth, and this is what we've discussed with Paul, is that there would be kind of a local Plymouth Rural Services kind of representative of the program to like help with word of mouth and sharing and at public events or things like that can help with Placemate kind of marketing efforts on the ground. And so they would work in tandem together.
They would also be where the money is then dispersed to the homeowners, which usually happens at the beginning and end of the lease. So we suggest that it's paid out half at the beginning at move-in, and then half at the end, just to make sure that everybody's compliant all the way through the lease. And we do all of that compliance throughout the duration of the lease.
Do you have a
We have-
suggested amount? Sorry.
Yeah, but you have a follow-up question, Matt, that's fine. Then we'll go to Greg, and then I think that might be what we have for placemate. If there are any additional questions for Kelly as well, but yeah, hit your follow-up and then
Yeah,
Greg,
sure.
and then try to wrap things up.
Okay, yeah. So for the Plymouth thing, you're saying it won't be 2 grand, it won't be 20 grand subsidy per year. Do you have an idea how much it will be?
We don't know yet. It would largely depend on the budget that we have to work with. And then it will also depend on if some of those are short-term rentals, what's the delta? How much are we going to set the rent caps for based on if it's going to go up to 120% AMI or if it's going to go up to 160% AMI? I think that that's one of those things that we're going to have to figure out as we go. Although I think that that's something that we can hone in a little bit more specifically on before we get that much further down the road. Tyler, I don't know if you have anything else to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, Matt, I did it at back of the napkin as like, some of our rent, like our workers, $100 a month additional, so that's like $1,200 in a year. That would make the difference for them of making it much more attainable to them. I put a median around $250 a month, right? So that's like
That's
2,400. Yeah, just over 2,400 a year of the subsidy. But what it comes down to, and this is again where we're designing the program, is like we can create a program that's very narrow on its AMI. So say 80% to 100% AMI that really targets a certain population, but that's going to limit our kind of adoption rate because we're saying it's a very small swath of the population. And the program is really based off of one set subsidy, not a variable based subsidy, I guess is the way the program has been designed. So we've talked about could we actually create a variable design that adds a lot of like the income verifications and kind of processes for it and the additional administrative fees? Do we just set it at one fee? So we're tackling the kind of core question that you're asking. At the end of the day, the goal is to get as many workforce attainable homes into renters in a position where they can attain the actual rent of it at the end of the day. That's our goal. And so we're kind of balancing what that is. So yeah, if you want to be involved in kind of that conversation in more detail, I'm happy to involve you or other steering committee members in that because it's the minutia of the program at the end of the day.
Okay, we'll go to Greg and then wrap up with Marcia as it relates to placemate.
So I'm curious because California real estate law really, really favors the tenants. When I was in Paradise, I had a rental unit, and I really understand the perception problem that you guys have because I had several evictions, people who looked good on paper and were paying regular rent, but someone moved in and without me knowing it. And once someone's there for like, if they get mail there, a squatter has as much rights as someone who's on a lease. Are you designing any protections for the property owner, the landlord in this? I mean, I had people really tear up property, I mean, really like trash a place because they were upset because they were getting evicted. And so, I mean, the perception of this kind of stuff is something real. I don't know how you're necessarily going to change it, but even if you can't, how are you going to like protect the property owner who's willing to take a chance on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do get that a lot. We go through, I think that because a lot of people who are participating in this program are desperate for housing because it pertains to their job and they really want to be keeping their job and therefore they really want to be keeping their housing because there's not a lot of other options. We're really in a particular subset where of the renter population where we've had, I mean, maybe it's luck, but we've had really good luck with tenants being really wonderful. We've rented over 600, almost 650 properties in this program. We've never had a single eviction. And I think that goes to that speaks a lot to the program and to the vetting of the partnership that's created between the homeowner and the tenant. They really have to work together in order to get into the lease to locals program, and that creates a good relationship in the beginning. They know that there's compliance throughout the program in order for both of them to stay in the program, for the homeowner to be getting the remainder of the payment, and for the tenants to have a place for the remainder for the lease duration. And I think that that really sets everyone up for success. Of course, that doesn't happen all the time. There are some times where people say, actually, we didn't really like our tenants. They decided to leave. The only time that we've really had anything that even came close to is that there was an ADU on a property and the homeowner rented out the top portion as one property and the bottom portion as another property. One was in the lease to locals program, the other was not, and there was a huge issue between those two sets of tenants. So that didn't really involve us or the program, but that was really the only thing that came close to an eviction. That was in Truckee about 2 years ago.
Marcia?
Okay, great. Marcia, you're up.
Yeah, so what do you see from the Dixie Fire Collaborative? Are you asking us for something?
Tyler, I think that that goes maybe
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, so yeah, in the memo, basically, it's asking for initial minimum fund is basically it. In that it include the TRIO program, which is our get into home ownership, the renters program, the lease to locals, and the RRA development model. And so really when we looked at housing, we looked at it as a complete ecosystem with those three buckets of funding in there. So if you want to check out the memo that gets into details, Marcia, I can send it to you as well in more detail. What I'm hoping for on being the one tasked with kind of asking for these funds and what is the direction with it is I'm looking for an indication by the Dixie Fire Collaborative Steering Committee of is there interest in supporting workforce attainable housing through these specific measures by the mid of November is what I'm asking for. And if there is, what are the specific questions or how would the Dixie Fire Collaborative Steering Committee like to be involved in the final design, the minutia? Is it, yep, we think these are good programs, they have good champions and they have good leadership, we're signing off the funds? Or no, we have to know specifically what is the AMI brackets you're looking at, how are fire survivors prioritized in this program? Like, what are the specific questions that we need to ask for the steering committee to actually get the fund approved and moving forward? The funds would be issued to Plymouth Rural Services. That would be the champion of the program moving it forward. And they would contract directly with Placemate to initiate the program. The ask is between not just the Dixie Fire Collaborative, but including the Almanor Foundation and the North Valley Community Foundation as well. Why we're doing this is we want to have a collective effort against workforce attainable housing, not just an individual organization that's the one carrying the weight. Because to be honest, it needs everyone at the table to kind of move these things forward. Hopefully that answered the questions, Marcia.
I got a quick question. So bottom line still, what funding is expected? What dollar figure is needed to support, to help support this effort? I mean, you know, you have an empty pocket. What do you need to put into that pocket to address this?
Yeah. So the initial ask was around, I think it was 340. I think talking through the program and what our target would be, it would be between that and $500,000 in total. If the Dixie Fire Collaborative wants to pool all of the resources to it and put it in that, that's great. The challenge is then we don't have kind of a lead partner, a lead funder for the development model. And so what that was where it was kind of a matrix of funding coming from the Almanor Foundation, coming from the North Valley Community Foundation, and coming from the Dixie Fire Collaborative. How could those funds be kind of partnered together to move the overall fund of housing, workforce attainable housing fund forward. So Danny, to be really specific, between 350 and $500,000. Are we looking at the DFC for all of that? No, particularly because we need to build the new housing stock as well. And that's where the RRA model comes in.
Great. So you need funding for the development model, funding for the filling the houses model, how to get those houses occupied, and then part C, what was the third part that's needed funding for? I think there's 3 components.
Yeah, good call. And I'm happy to resend the memo to everyone. The third program is the TRIO program, and that's getting into home ownership. Specifically, that is a better fit for North Valley Community Foundation to help fund that, because it's looking at getting building capacity at the county-wide level. And that is with Roger Diefendorf and the CDC, Community Development Commission, and that is our local housing authority.
And team, on October 18th, I think I sent out the memo that Tyler's been referencing. I will resend. I mean, it should be in your inbox. However, happy to send again, just so that everybody has it. And it's kind of pulled up at the top of your inbox.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Patrick. I just like, sometimes it's nice to have that stuff as we're talking, just a fresh refresh of where to get the details. So I can pull that up too. All
Yeah,
right. Thank
no,
you.
no worries, no worries. Too easy. And Greg.
One last question for Tyler. So looking at the memo, the units that you're planning on building, you wanted to build 45 units, is that correct? Okay.
Not me. Luckily, we have Kelly on the call. Yeah, we're looking at 45 units in 3 years off of 15 parcels.
And of those, like the memo that I'm looking at said you wanted 30 renters homes that are supported by an average monthly subsidy of $250. So that's like $90,000 or $100,000 a year, right? How many of these, like, I mean,
No, so 10 units a year. Yeah, so because the reality is we'll probably get 10 units in the first year, and then we would grow from that. But if the subsidy rate is less than 250, so again, my intention is to set a target budget that would be realistic to support workforce attainable projects, because now we need to go through thorough design of the program, right? The very specific minutia of it. And so working through that with Kai, we've already identified in the memo, it says rooted renters. That's not the program we're doing. We're actually doing lease to locals. And so what I'm asking the steering committee to go through is to go through that conversation with me as we're designing the program, so that I don't get so far down the end and realize that's not what the steering committee wants or what the DFC is really looking for when it comes to workforce attainable housing.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Just in the interest of time, if there are, on the development model specifically with regard to the RA rentals, are there any, we talked kind of at length, and Kelly gave an overview last meeting. Are there any additional questions, maybe 1, 2, 3 tops, just so we can kind of get moving for Kelly while he's here? Matt, and then Greg.
I think if we're all done with the lease to local section, I might jump off the call.
Yes, thank you, Kai, very much for joining us, and we appreciate you for coming on and explaining PlaceMate. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Nice to meet you.
Have a nice day.
Thanks, Kai.
We'll go Matt and then Greg.
Okay, last time I asked the question, but I didn't get a good answer, and this was around the appraisal. Like in the model, it assumes it cost about, I think, 680 grand or something like that to build the triplex, but it'll appraise for like 715 or something. And my question was, what about if it doesn't appraise for so much? Like in Indian Valley, for $300,000, you can get a pretty good house. Like 350, 400, you get a really nice house. 700 grand is a lot of money for a house in Greenville. What about if you build it and it appraises the 500K? Like, what happens then with the model? Yeah, so that's my question.
Okay, I'd like to answer that. For the most part, real property appraises on the square footage basis. Up in Paradise, our square footage pricing is around $260,000 to $275,000 a square foot is kind of where appraisals are coming in. That would be for a standard 3-bedroom house. So the first thing I did when I created our appraisal model was to use appraisal numbers that are similar to what we are currently seeing in Paradise and just doing it on a square foot basis. But remember, the houses that we're building, if you can get $265,000, $275,000 for a single family home appraisal per square foot, what we are looking to do is building 3 units. So we have 3 kitchens, we have 6 bathrooms, we have 3 garages. We have a significantly different structure, which is larger and more detailed than a standard single family home. So conceivably, our houses should appraise for more per square foot. We only need to meet our model $280 a square foot to meet our financial model, and we think that's attainable. The second part of your question is what happens if it doesn't appraise? Well, if it's not going to appraise out, we're simply not going to build the house. It's just that simple. We intend to have a relationship with our regional banker, who will be providing the takeout loans, and a clear understanding between appraisers in the area on how these units are going to appraise prior to us ever turning dirt. Because trust me, if we cannot refinance them for 75% loan to value off of development costs, then we're not interested in building houses, because then the financial model does not work. We would have to charge more for rent to offset the difference between what the banks will loan and what our development costs will be. So we should know that up front, and those are the meetings that are forthcoming with our takeout lenders as we continue talking with additional financial sources and additional banks as to who's going to be the takeout funder.
Okay, Matt, did you catch all that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, but I mean, is that so? All right. So we got to do an appraisal exercise before we start this, right? Because your 285 is based on appraisals down in Paradise. But do we have an idea of dollars per square foot in Neil Valley?
We don't, because there's no comparable comps in Greenville. There's no comps. There's no houses there. So there's been no sales. So they're going to, there's different ways in which the appraisers can approach creating market conditions. One of them is the cost basis method, which we think is really the most accurate way to determine what fair appraisal price should be. And that's where when in an absence of in a community where there's an absence of comparable sales, recent home sales, then they defer to a cost basis in which it's very easy for us to produce what it is what our development costs are on these homes. But again, we have to know that up front, because everything in my business model relates to having a cash flow positive financial model from day one. And so that means all of these things have to be vetted prior to us ever turning dirt. And that's the reason why we're not even going to purchase property, or we will not make any commitments to anyone that we are going to produce housing until we have clear ideas on what our takeout funding is going to be, how that's going to be approached, how it's going to be valued, and what our loan to value ratio is, because that will all that is a direct influence on what we have to charge in market rents to our tenants. And those prices have to be known up front. We can't guess on this. The stakes are too high.
Good there, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. I think now that we've hit 4 p.m. Unless there are anything that's burning right now, I think what we can do is take another look at the memo and the associated videos in that email, plus anything that was sent out over the weekend, and then we can continue to do kind of a refinement and question and answer via email over the next week or two. With
Just one more question. Last time I requested to see the kind of the details of the model. The kind of level of detail I'm looking at is things like vacancy rate or insurance, maintenance, those types of figures, which I didn't see. All I've seen is the presentation. It's very high level. Can you share the model that has that level of detail on it?
Yes, we have all the financial models in Excel, which I would be more than happy to share. They are quite comprehensive. Some of them have literally hundreds of columns as we do a financial forecast out for 48 months. So it would require us to walk through them. But I will tell you that the majority of our costs that are our concern are not insurance and taxes. Those are perfunctory costs. The costs that we're concerned with, the actual cost of construction, those are that is 99% of our costs. And those are the ones that we've really fleshed out. And for that purpose, I have about an estimate, line item estimate. I think it probably has 800, 900 line items in it to estimate the actual development cost of these homes on a literally on a room by room basis, and that uses an estimating system called Xactimate, which is a nationally recognized construction estimating program. So my main concern is what the cost of development is going to be. The cost of insurance is important. We know what we're currently paying in Paradise for California Fair Plan homes. That's the only insurance that's going to be available to us, at least on the onset. And as far as the management costs, we already have our allowance for management fees. And with only 15 properties to manage with 15 tenants, we're not looking at significant costs for ongoing management costs. So, but I'd be more than happy to share what I have, but it would be something I would share on an individual basis with your committee. Be happy to do it and show how it works. We could do it on a Zoom, but I will show you that we really fleshed out these costs and continue to flesh them out as pricing changes. Basically on a week by week basis, things change.
So with that, I think just a show of hands, like Matt has expressed interest in it. Is there any other steering committee members that would like to? I can work on scheduling a Zoom call with everyone, or Ben can help schedule a Zoom call with everyone. So Greg is interested. Anyone else? Danny is interested as well. So we'll try to get a Zoom call with everyone on the call. It's what I'm hearing is it's not we're trying to hold our cards tight and not show you. It's more of these are very robust and exhaustive spreadsheets that need some explanation around them. And so it'd be great to have run through those on the Zoom. So Ben, can you work on scheduling a meeting with I actually don't, is that allowed from like Brown Act? I'm not of this world. Patrick, is that?
Yeah, so we're not governed by the
meeting?
Brown Act or anything like that. So yes,
Okay.
100%. If anybody wants to meet offline and just get a tutorial on how the spreadsheets work, that's all kosher. No problem.
Great. Thanks, Patrick.
Yep. All right, is it Greg, were you raising your hand to be included?
Yeah,
in
just
the-
one
the
last question for
calculator?
Tyler
Yeah.
is, Matt had requested, and a long time ago, I requested like some drawings and models of what these, the actual, projects might look like. And did we ever get those?
Yeah, we can get those for you. I don't have them, but yeah, we'll send those out to you. They're in the slideshow presentation as well. So just also note with those, there is ability to make them not all that exact unit. It's not saying this is the only unit. We can actually
Alright.
do a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 2-bath instead of a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, those kind of things. And so then if you make a note that we'll follow up with those drawings, Greg. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Thanks, Tyler.
Yep.
All right, team.
Appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for Tyler, Ben, and Kelly. Thanks for coming on and elaborating more fully. And thanks for setting that up with Kai Froelich from Placemate. That's interesting. That's an interesting business model just in general. I'm glad someone's thinking of it and looking at the locales that they offer this service. It definitely is, it's part of the layered approach. I think has been discussed. None of these things is like a one size fits all. It's these are different layers and parts to help and not solve, but help with housing overall. So that was interesting. Cool. We are going to carry on with other business. Again, as the offer always stands, you're more than welcome to hang out and listen. But if you sign off, that's fine too. So we're going to move on to small business grant proposal on our agenda. Thanks, team. We'll see you all later.
Thank you very much.
So this is really more for informational purposes at this point. I wanted to, bring this around to the rest of the team. So Kaylee, who's not on the call, but Kaylee, Marcia, and Matt have been looking at different economic development things. If you recall from our meeting in July, breaking out into sort of subcommittees in order to tackle certain issues. And so it was Kaylee and Marcia, and then eventually Matt joined their team to sort of discuss some of these things. And what's been sort of posited on a number of times is an opportunity to potentially do something that's related to small businesses. And there's been a variety of conversations that team has had, to sort of, throw something against the wall and see what sticks. One of the pieces is so going from big to small was marketing and being able to advertise more effectively the existing businesses that are here right now. So say the Spot right now, we've got the Way Baby, which is kind of closed. I think I did see that they were open the other day, but I think that may have been for kicks. And then you have Region Burger. They're at the Spot, and then across the way you have the Valley Grind. Down the street you have Evergreen. Marcia used the example of sandwiches that can be purchased at Evergreen, but maybe nobody knows about that. And you got Susie Hunter over on Hot Springs Road, opened on Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. But how accessible is that? And how do people know her hours as a hardware store there? Do they even know that it exists down on Hot Springs Road? So this issue of like physical signage came up, but then also social media or digital presence as well. So funding maybe to support all those types of things. Signage, yes, but then anything else that might help. So, could we structure something to the tune of maybe $3,000 to $5,000 per business that wanted to apply for something to help give them a kickstart on their own advertising and marketing ventures? So I talked to Bill and Kim about this a bunch. And then I happened to see, a lot of this stuff goes back to how the Dixie Fire Collaborative or any other agency ended up with this $17.2 million that DA Hollister and the neighboring county DAs structured in their civil prosecution of PG&E 2 years ago. And what is that money? What can it be used for, and so on and so forth? And the DA has a whole website devoted to just the information around that 17.2 that came in. Again, DFC with $3 million, Sierra Institute with $1 million. The biggest recipient was the Plumas Fire Safe Council with $5 million. What are they using the money for? So on and so forth. So I specifically asked the DA if this went to businesses, small businesses in the burn scar or recovery area, is that permissible? And quote unquote, he said, I have no problem with that, right? So can we do, something that is structured along those lines that helps businesses in the recovery area kickstart what they already have? It sounds like the short answer is yes. So the other thing that when I was talking to Bill and Kim about this is that some of the work on this has already really been done, and that work, some of it, in the summer before I came aboard, so the summer of 23, Kes Porter, Clint Cobley, and a few others had worked on a business funders roundtable. Now, from what I understand, the business funders roundtable kind of fell out for reasons I'm not exactly certain, other than I think one of the big reasons was that there was no place to hold this business roundtable coordinator position. I think Sierra Institute had at one point said that they would, and then they were unable to do so. And I think Matt has some more information on that as well. But anyway, it didn't work out. But there's some paperwork that was designed at one point to help with the grant facilitation process of say, a business being able to apply for money from the DFC. So I got those materials from Bill and Kim. And I think by just sort of amending them a little bit, updating them, and being more specific about what this money is going to be used for and how it can be applied for, that might be something that we can work. Now, these are all recommendations at this point, and then it would be finding like a logical organization that might be able to shepherd this, or if we try to do it in-house. My only worry about doing it in-house is just being able to have the time and energy, or like the time to administer it properly, to make sure that we can process this as if I do that by myself. But if it's something that like the Chamber of Commerce might be able to do, again, they're pretty lean on staffing as well. I don't think they have any permanent staff. I talked to Matt about the Innovation Hub, see if they were equipped to be able to do something like this. I don't know. But right now it's simply sort of like a whiteboarded idea that needs to come into fruition. Matt, did you want to say something on that?
I mean, we probably need whatever a marketing person, like a consultant, to be who we're going to give money to go out and find the businesses and make it work. Like, I think that would be one person. I mean, I think within DFC, we have the capacity to manage that consulting relationship, if it's $3,000 or whatever the budget is per business that this person helps. So I don't know that we need another, or that we need like a full-time staff person to manage this thing. I think that managing the consultant we can probably do ourselves.
Okay. So finding like a consultant
yeah.
that they would then work with the businesses and then help with the management of their grant proposal and then funding.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that person would be responsible for all that, and we could pay them a salary, or we could pay them whatever per business, or maybe a little bit of both.
Like a contracted
make it
percentage. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Great.
Maybe like $2,000 per business plus whatever, $2,000 a month or something like that, to get it going. So
Okay.
we can make some dough.
You can sketch that out. Yes, Greg, you have your hand up.
Yeah, this sort of goes along with signage and stuff. I saw the other day, like Region Burger, they had to shut down their pipes for frozen, and the trailer is like a winterized high-end trailer. And so I was wondering I haven't asked her. This is just like off the top of my head, and also maybe with Daily Grind, can we get some funds for them to really help them skirt it, winterize it, put a light underneath it, so that they can stay open through the winter?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't even know that was a thing. I know last year we tried, it was the winterization of the port, like the bathrooms over at the spot, so that the thrift shop volunteers could use the facilities and not have to worry about, because they had to shut I think Kevin
The water.
had to shut those down because they were unable to be or it wasn't that they weren't able to be winterized, it's that at the time they were not winterized. And then I think Kevin and Kest and a couple others with some out-of-pocket expenses were able to winterize the bathrooms, and then that worked out through the rest of the winter. So maybe something very similar could happen with the Region Burger. I didn't know that they closed because of that.
I think it was just for a day, but I mean, they had some broken pipes. They had to get underneath the trailer,
Yeah.
wrap them up, and just some skirting and a heat lamp underneath it. Probably enough to keep stuff from freezing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I don't know, like if there's something, maybe we could help them out with like some snow removal assistance in case that shows up.
If it happens, yeah, or whomever owns the spot.
Yeah. Yeah, that would.
Which I think is Kest owns part of it, and I don't know who owns the rest of it.
Yeah, I think Cassie maybe.
Maybe. But yeah, all good things. But what I will do is take a look at the existing paperwork, and then maybe have that drafted or some of the recommended revisions for our next meeting. And then y'all can take a look at it and see if it passes muster, and then maybe we can move to I think a plan here could just be to earmark or allocate, if we're talking $3,000 to $5,000 per business, could we allocate up to, 100 to 120? Because if we're talking about like a contracted consultant, allocating like $100,000 specifically for grant funds, so that could potentially assist 20 to 30 businesses, and then however much money people think is necessary to have on hand to help with a consultant that's going to help facilitate that. Yes, Danny, you have your hand up?
Yeah, why can't we use Innovation Hub? Is that too far afield, or it seems kind of like
I'm not saying we
go-
can. I just
Yeah.
Um,
we shouldn't have to go searching for this. We have somebody who's already done a lot of research, should be familiar, should be able to be helpful, doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. Anyway, I'm just sooner.
yeah. Matt, you had your hand up, and then Greg.
Oh, sorry, my hand shouldn't be up. But anyway, Innovation Hub just hasn't been very effective at helping local businesses, and so I don't know. I just don't think that we're going to be more effective at this program as well. I think they're kind of finished, but I'm not sure.
Okay, Greg.
Yeah, has anybody seen Clint Coblay's program for promoting Plumas County and Plumas County businesses?
I've seen the
From the chamber?
I've seen the Chamber Coalition's work, yes. Which
It's pretty nice website, and I just was wondering if anybody had even seen it. When we were
I
talking
saw
about
the website. I mean, he was calling it a relocation package, and I'm like, that's not a relocation package. Normally, relocation packages come with some money or benefits.
comes with some money,
There was
yeah.
just there was no money in it. It's just a website saying how nice it is to live in Plymouth.
Right.
Yeah, that's something that the Lost Chamber Coalition has been working on, and then I know that the Feather River Tourism Group, I think they changed their name. They now are trying to kind of kickstart some programs as they've advocated for to return back to their funding from the county. So they're supposed to have a tax assessed percentage that helps fund their tourism efforts or tourism promotion efforts, and they have been without that funding for whatever reason. So they've gone back to the Board of Supervisors to basically reinstate the funding that they're supposed to get in anyway. So maybe that will help as well. Yes, Marcia.
So maybe we need to talk to Clint, and maybe he would know a person or a group that would be good to handle this, because basically we want someone that could help with media, social media, computer type things, getting on Yelp, getting on, the internet, but then also the signage, somebody that would know about what is the best kind of sign. We had a little sign for the thrift shop at our church before it burned down that was, we got it wild hair, and we would roll it out and then roll it back in, and it had our hours and our days that we were available. And that's what most of those places need is when they open, what do they serve?
Josie Litchfield in Quincy has her own marketing business.
Oh, she'd be great. Yeah, she'd be great.
Kata Marketing. So she does the digital marketing for a number of businesses already. I don't know if she has, like, I don't know if she has room, right? On, like, if she's able to take more clients, quote unquote, but I think that maybe we could talk to her and just see, like, given like this is sort of like a group effort, that maybe she would have the ability to be able to do that. And then, yeah, we could start there.
So maybe you, Matt and I need to get together with Kaylee and find out what are the businesses we're thinking about, and then
Yeah,
what
that'd be very
exactly
helpful.
they
That'd be
do we
great.
want them to do.
That'd be super helpful.
Okay. All right, Matt. So I'll text you and Kaylee.
Great. Well, so more to follow, and it sounds like there's a little bit of homework to do on this front to kind of see what is in the realm of possibility. But it's good to have everybody thinking about it at this point. All right, so we'll move on. I was going to give you just a quick update on a couple of things I'm doing. So VOAD training. VOAD is Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. This is something that the NorCal United Way is helping Plumas County get established. So VOAD, Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. This a number of counties across the state and really across the country, they utilize this framework, and it's proactive in nature in that it's a network of volunteer organizations, very similar to like what a long-term recovery group like our own would be a part of. You know, a lot of the things that Plumas County learned as a result of the last, several fires has been where these groups come together and network because of the disaster. The VOAD is being established to be proactive and to have this network and connection made prior to disasters, so that the networking is that much more expedient and effective when the disaster strikes. The United Way, they sent out some training opportunities, and there's one in Sacramento that I'm going to go to on Wednesday just to listen and find out more about. Marty Walters, who is she runs a risk management company herself. She's a risk management consultant. She's been leading up the VOAD here in Plumas County, and then has been connected with our own county Office of Emergency Services and Risk Management, specifically Laura Peeney and Travis Goings at the county, to kind of help get this up and running. So I'm gonna go to a training, just kind of help out where we can, and just see what kind of role there is to kind of reinforce some of the work that the DFC had done over the last couple of years, and kind of keep those connections going to see what the kind of the future can hold. So that is on Wednesday, and then on Friday, I think I'm going to butcher their name, but I know the first three parts of the 4-letter acronym. It's the Feather River Stewardship Cooperative, I think is what the C stands for, but I'm not exactly sure, or consortium. FRISC is their acronym, but that's a collection of the Forest Service, Plumas Fire Safe Council, the Feather River Land Trust, the Feather River Resource Conservation District, and I think there might be, in the Sierra Institute, there might be one more in there, but that is their own sort of networking group, if you will, to kind of develop partnerships and work together instead of, once again, duplicating efforts, small pot of resources, make sure that folks are doing the right thing, the right tools for the right job, that sort of thing. So they are hosting a reforestation and restoration tour, I believe, on Friday here in Indian Valley. They've got a couple points and landmarks that they want to point out. So I'm hopping along on that just to once again listen. Marcia, you're going too? Great. I'll see you out there. It starts at 9 or 9 a.m. at the Taylorsville campground, I think is the link up spot. And then we're gonna drive from there. So anyway, gonna be a long day in the field, if you will, but it should be good to kind of see what projects each one of those entities is sort of working on. And that kind of leads me into the next topic. Joe Hoffman with the Forest Service, who's heading up the North Fork Restoration Project. He was at the last Dixie Fire community meeting. Talked about the 163,000 acres that they're working on. It's going through the NEPA process right now. He mentioned a community protection zone that they're working on. It's kind of separate to the North Fork project, but separate but contributory, I think. He took Marcia, you were there, Greg, you were there, Danny, you were there. He talked about 700 total acres, 300 around Taylorsville and 400 around Greenville. But they're still looking for funding and things like that. So I talked to him after the meeting just to get a little bit more clarity on what he meant by that. What, like, why are they looking for funding, and really who is that? And so it sounds like it's sort of a shared partnership between the Sierra Institute, Forest Service, and maybe one other organization. They're the ones that are looking for funding to help support that. So I thought that might be something that the DFC could contribute towards. I don't know anything really about it yet. Hoping to find out more about it this Friday. And then once I get some more information to see if that's something that is maybe a project that the steering committee would like to contribute money towards, in that it serves to protect both Taylorsville and Greenville. And with regard to, if I remember correctly from the brief, the Greenville portion was also replanting around Greenville as well. So all good things. Quick timeout before I get to the community supper. I had a conversation with Debbie Castle today. Debbie runs the Indian Valley Food Pantry, just around the corner here. She has placed out bins. We've got one out in front of our location here on Crescent Street, bins for a holiday food drive. And so canned goods, non-perishable food items, that type of thing. So there's one at Evergreen, there's one in front of our location, and then there's one at the post office. So if you see those places out and about and you feel so inclined to donate, by all means, I've got it up on Facebook and just going to kind of keep refreshing it so they can, folks can donate. But what also came up in conversation was that the food pantry typically tries to get about 100 turkeys at for Thanksgiving. And they could use a monetary donation to support that. So Debbie estimates anywhere between $2,000 to $2,500 to support buying 100 turkeys for turkey dinners at the food pantry. And so I thought that might be something that we can contribute towards. So she thinks it might actually work out to be about $2,100, but we talked about maybe $2,500 just to make it a nice round number. And then that way they have additional funding to buy other components to the turkey dinners if need be, if it comes to that. She said that at Christmas time, they get a large donation from CAN, which is the Community Assistance Network down in Quincy. So usually for the Christmas dinners, it's not so much of a worry, but with regard to the turkey dinners, they do have to purchase them. So I did not put it on the agenda because I found out about it today. But I was thinking that that might be something that the DFC steering committee could contribute a dollar amount of $2,500 to the Indian Valley Food Pantry to support their Thanksgiving turkey drive. Yes, Dan, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I like to see if we can make a motion and vote on that. I think we need to act. That's something.
I
like it.
second it.
So Danny's got a motion. So a motion for $2,500 to the Indian Valley Food Pantry.
Marcia second.
Correct. Thank you, Marcia.
Marcia Roby second. And we'll do a roll call vote. Danny Steyer,
Yes.
Marcia Roby,
Yes.
Matt Fogarty.
Yeah.
Greg Walsh,
Yes.
Shelby Long,
Yes.
and Dax Albrecht.
Lida.
Lida.
Oh, Lida Scoggin.
Yes.
Thank you. And Dax Albrecht.
Lights on, nobody's home.
Max, are you there?
Dax,
He's muted, not around.
let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we've got 6.
That should be a quorum, right? Or
Yeah, so we should be good. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, the motion stands approved with 6 of you voting regardless. So we'll say that motion is approved. Thank you.
Good,
Right.
I put in a request for a tangential item.
Yes.
Debbie Allen's doing the light parade this year, and she wanted to get just like little tiny giveaways for the kids. And so I'm wondering if we could kick her $500. She's doing it mostly out of her own pocket, I think. So to just sort of help fund like little giveaways. We're doing the toy drive, or the toy giveaway out on the community dinner. But for the light parade, could we help her out with that?
Let's see here. And who was it to, Greg?
Debbie Allen.
I don't know Debbie. Or does she represent an organization?
I don't know. She's been doing the community dinners forever. I don't know if she represents an organization or not. I could ask her.
Can we just how would we do this? Trying to think.
would you give it out during the community dinners or what?
At the light parade, she does.
She wants to do it at the light parade, and I think it's just like some little bag of candy or whatever. You know what I mean? Something really small, and then because at the community dinner it'll be a whole presentation. If you guys haven't seen it over the last couple of years, there's
Debbie.
supported by age groups and
Yes. All right. Actually, I think
is Russ's. I guess is it Russ Allen? I don't know what the little tractor, the little bulldozer.
Yeah. Russ Peter. Yeah.
Russ Peters. Yeah. Okay.
I know who you're talking about. I know Debbie. Yeah, that's
All
right.
right.
Okay. That probably shouldn't be a problem. I think they do that through the Taylorsville Historic Hall. Is that correct?
Probably. That's certainly where the events were held before, but she sort of retired from doing the community dinners, the monthly community dinners.
Right. I think I know Destiny Bloxham on behalf of the IVRPD is sort of coordinating those now. Janine was doing it in the interim, but now Destiny and speaking of which, Greg, I haven't forgotten to get you guys connected via email to coordinate that for when we talk about the community supper here.
I have Destiny's email, so I should just make a note to self to get a hold of her.
I think for Debbie, I think probably what we could do is because trying to figure out, can I just double check on how we can do a check to like an individual person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to run it to an entity, Patrick. We need something.
And
Yeah.
I think we can make it work, Greg. I just need to I just want to double check to make sure that we're
Absolutely.
just through the
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a small ask, but I think it has to be done right for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And so maybe what we can do is just at the next meeting, why don't we discuss funding in its entirety for that and the community supper, right?
All right.
And just kind of wrap it all up together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll make a note to be able to do that. And yeah, so I've got it on there, community supper at the Taylorsville Historic Hall on double check this. I've checked it 3 times, but I want to make sure I got the right date. It is, I did it again. Yeah, it's the 16th. It should be
16th, yeah.
Monday, December 16th, not the 15th, which is on the agenda. So it'll be Monday, December 16th at the Historic Hall. So now is a good time as any. Does it any thoughts on like menu options? Like, is there anything that anybody feels passionate about serving that evening?
Hmm.
We could do like ham and potatoes and rolls and salad, that type of thing, just because it is sort of leading up for the holidays.
What's the date again?
It should be Monday, December 16th, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I got.
Monday, December 16th.
And we're gonna do that in lieu of our DFC steering committee meeting.
It would there would be a little bit of a conflict, yeah, because the meeting, I think the dinner, they asked to get started around 4:30 or 5.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you're cooking and everything and I mean, and it'd even be better to get in there the day before to decorate.
Yeah, and set up and all that stuff.
All right, I mean, it's a big job.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's kind of start off with like a menu, like something to start gearing towards. Any thoughts?
yeah, I like that. The ham and the scalloped potatoes,
Okay.
and then salad, and then pies. I
Yeah.
could do a couple pies.
Okay. So great. I'll start. So Marcia, you got some pies that you can. Okay.
I could make scalloped potatoes too, a big pan.
Okay.
I mean-
I can do the same. And what we could do is, I mean, we could purchase the hams
Mhm.
and then I could just bake them. We could just start baking them on Monday and then have them ready to go, and then just keep them warm in the oven at the. So I'll purchase the hams, but I can make a thing of potatoes. And yeah. Anybody else want to do something?
So we got what? Scalloped potatoes, yams, salad, ham.
Yeah. Does anybody want to do salad?
And who's around? I know Matt's not always here, and Lida's not here.
Well, that's okay.
I mean, this is for like, what, 150 people?
Well, that's what I was. Destiny was going to provide me the numbers from both October and November. So October, I think they were in like the 60 realm,
Yeah, but you're not giving away free toys to kids.
and that was at the Roundhouse. And then she was thinking that the November one would be like the next big kind of inside. The November one would be a good indicator as people participating in the sort of the
I
winter.
think
Academic
150
too.
is too many, because I used to do it. We never had 150 people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we could plan for like 100. Plan for 100. Okay. And then I'll follow up with Destiny to figure out what their numbers were or will be, like once they do the November one, just kind of what that is, and then we can go from there. And then we have another, we can, in 2 weeks, we can dial in a little bit better who's doing what. And kind of get some task organization done, and then we'll go from there.
Cool.
All right, great.
Good.
All right. Thank you. So we'll do committee member updates. Danny, do you have anything that you'd like to update the committee on?
We have no new expenditures and no new interest, so I have nothing.
Okay, thank you, Danny.
And he got a
Mark?
new table for his house this weekend. So now
Yeah.
Thanksgiving
Yeah.
dinner. I saw it.
Thanksgiving is going to be in Greenville this year after a 3-year hiatus. Yes,
Oh,
so
great.
that's a happy.
Yeah, good for you and your family.
Thank you.
Marcia, do you have anything?
I don't.
Okay. Lida, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Just both Trina and I went to the grant writing workshop, which I thought was really, really productive, and just wanted to share that.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out. And I understand there's a second one in December. Is that right?
That I don't know, but I think it'd be probably pretty much the same thing, but I'll double check it because it was definitely worth doing for sure.
Good. Yeah, I saw Christy Hoffman a couple weeks ago, and she had said that they thought they had pretty good numbers for this October to November one, and that they're probably going to do a second round in December.
Great.
So yeah, thanks. I'm glad that that worked out for you.
Yeah, me too.
Greg, anything for the team?
Not so much for the team, but I'd like to know like the agreement between with the Elmore Foundation and Community Services District and us. Have we signed that?
It has not been signed yet. I know that the Indian Valley Community Services District has it, and then I think it was going over to North Valley Community Foundation and then to us. And then I would sign it on behalf of the DFC.
I would really like to have another discussion about that before we do. I mean, there was like a big slugfest on the Plymouth Sun between Adam and the gal who's running the Chester community supervisors of the community watch group or whatever it is, you know. And so I really would like to like sort of revisit that one more time.
Okay.
Can you put that on the agenda for next meeting?
Yeah, sure.
All right, great. I'll send out an email with considerations.
Okay. All right.
Patrick, I thought that they had to be submitted before our next meeting, so
So our
don't,
next meeting is it's on the 18th. So it needs to be submitted no later than the following week.
okay,
So
all right.
Shelby, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
No updates at this time.
Great. Are you in town? Are you are away? Any firework right now?
Yeah, I'm back home right now.
Cool. Okay. Dax.
No, nothing new for me.
Okay. And Matt.
Nothing in particular. The hotel's going well in terms of the construction there, and I've just started the planning on the rebuild of the store as well. So early days there, but hopefully get one of those businesses open soon.
Right.
Good. Is anybody interested in the store? Is that why you're doing that?
No, I'm going to develop it myself. Like I had it available for rent for like a year, and no one really had the capital to do it right. So I'm going to be doing like investing in the plumbing and heating and lights and shelving and refrigeration and that kind of stuff myself. And then try and either hire like a manager, a live-in manager, or rent it then. I don't really want to be serving in the store, but I don't know. There's not that many people around here who could take it on. So I'm going to basically get it going and then see if I can get one of these business grants. Like I haven't got one yet, but there's some local grants for businesses, but you have to be open to get the grant for the equipment. So because the store's not open, I can't get the grant to open the store. You have to open the store and then get the grant for the equipment. So anyway, it might be.
Well, good. Got your, oh, I think you just dropped off. That's okay. All right. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I motion to adjourn.
And a second?
I'll
I'll
second it.
second.
All right, Greg, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good evening.
Thanks,
All
Pat.
right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.